any detail.
Yeah.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, Dr. Rob.
How you
You
doing?
and I
Haven't
were
seen you in a
just
while.
talking. I know we've both had very busy weekends,
We
but
have.
you were just sharing before we hit record that you were talking with a couple who was struggling, but you were
But I
having
first
some
want to say,
feelings about it too.
well, I do, but I first wanted to say that I got to go to a conference this weekend with hundreds of CSATs, hundreds and hundreds of people who've been in our field, and many of whom, without bragging, many of whom I've trained. In fact, I have to tell you this with all due respect. I know I work in a very strange part of the world. We do kind of strange things in our work. It's not typical, but there were people who want to take their picture with me. There are people who want to like, I'm the sex guy. It was just very rewarding because I felt like all these 30 years of work meant that I meant something to people and I had something to give. And that made me feel very valuable. It's
Well,
nice to feel worthwhile.
and you are. I mean, you are one of the leaders in the field, and you are still creating content, unlike
We're
some
still
others.
at
So,
it.
so yeah, you're still here. Like this is like you're still giving of your time. This is
Still here.
free. Like how how
It's
many people do you know that are at this caliber? Well,
misleading.
first of all, not really at this caliber, but also willing to give of their time on a consistent basis. So
We
it's
did a
it's
talk
just
on
different.
forgiveness. And for those of you here, I want to say that what we talked about just briefly is that forgiveness is not yes or no. It's not I forgive you or I don't forgive you. It's a whole process of thinking and reacting and focusing on yourself. I mean, there's just it can take a very long time. And so for those of you who say, please forgive me, it's really manipulative of you because nobody just turns on a dime but the culture says forgive and forget. The culture says, let go and let, I mean, it says all kinds of things, but you don't just turn it off like a switch. Please forgive me is not respecting the other person because they need to hurt for a while. It's like saying, I know your mother died last week, but get over it. It doesn't work that way. When we are broken inside, it takes a long time and we have to do it at our own pace. So that does bring me to I do consultations, right, Tammy, and I see people for 2 hours and I work with couples that they're really trying to figure out how to move forward. They're trying to figure out, how can we get through this? How can we survive the infidelity? How can we survive the cheating? How can we find a way to move forward or not? But sometimes I work with couples where what the spouse really wants is they want the addict to get better, but they don't really want to do anything about it. They're hopeful. Maybe if he goes to treatment, he has some issues. Maybe if they get better, um, my life will be happier if he changes. My life will be happier if he changes. Well, if you don't change, nothing is going to change. And what I mean that, and I said, actually, I can say this. I said to this woman today, it's really hurting about what happened to her. And believe me, what happened to her was awful. But she came to see me for consultation because she was so worried about him. And she thought maybe he could get some help. But she wasn't worried about herself. He was the one with the problem. And I said, no, you're the one with the problem because you still let him in your bed. And I'll tell you, those of your partners who are suffering, you have a choice. You have a choice. You can either say, I don't deserve this anymore. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I am worth more than this. And you don't deserve my affection. You deserve my kindness. You don't deserve my giving to you. Maybe you don't deserve to live here because I am worth more than this. That's one choice. The other choice is something we don't talk about a lot, which is you can just choose to say, okay, you want to do this? It's fine with me. And really, I don't care. I don't mind. I can be at peace with whatever you do. So those are the choices. You can say, I cannot take this anymore. I will not let myself be abused and defaced. I will not let myself be lied and manipulated and gaslit and go away from me because I deserve more. Maybe not forever. Go get help. Go deal with it yourself. But I am going to take care of me. I won't put up with this anymore. And the other choice is to say, well, I know he's going to keep doing it. There's nothing I can do about it. And I'm not ready to ask him to leave or make him go to treatment, whatever that is. So maybe I just said it's okay with me. So either way, I'm no longer in pain. I'm no longer in pain. Because either I say, okay, fine, do what you want, or I say I can't take it anymore. But either one is a decision. And what I see people in the most pain is they're living on hope. Maybe things, maybe if they go to the right therapist, maybe because they realize they're an addict, maybe because I make them listen to this podcast, maybe because they're listening to Tammy and Rob. That I'll say it this way: I have worked with, and Tammy knows this, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples and men with this problem. And there's only, and I mean, I've run programs, I've been all over the world, I've been very fortunate. Um, but of all those people I've seen, none of the men I've seen came into treatment because for any other reason, but something was happening in their life that was so horrible for them that they didn't want it to happen. They were having sex with a patient and they were going to lose their career. They were cheating on their spouse endlessly, and that spouse finally said, "You're gonna, it's me or it's you changing this or the family." The only reason people come to treatment is because they're in such a crisis and something so important to them is going to be lost that they will do whatever it takes. The spouses says, well, I hope, and maybe if you and read this book and is living on hope, but doesn't really see much change, you might as well just say, okay, it's fine with me, do what you want. And what I'm really talking about, and I'm going on and Tammy, is I want the spouses to come to peace for themselves, to not suffer seeing something that they do that's hurting them over and over and over again, and saying, gee, I hope you change. I'll do anything for you to help you change, but are not taking care of themselves and realizing that they are dying inside. I want to help the spouse who cannot live with themselves and live with this and say, okay, us being together is more, or I don't want to suffer anymore. And it's not going to change. So maybe I just should accept it the way it is. Either, and I'll give another example and I'll stop. You drink all the time. You're drunk all the time. I've said a million times, stop drinking. And, I'm not going to sit around with a drunk anymore. I don't want to hear the alcohol. I don't want to see you passed out on the floor. I don't want to smell it. I don't want to, you're lying to me anymore. No, I wasn't drinking, when I knew you were. So you have to go to treatment or I'm done. I'm not going to live with a drunk. And then they have a choice. Either they do something about it or they lose their family or whatever it is. Or the alcoholic or the spouse can say, you know what, drink all you want. I don't care. You're the one with the problem. Do whatever you want. I'll go live my life and you drink as much as you want. But either way, they're not suffering because they've made a choice for themselves. I am going to live with this or I'm not going to live with this. But I can't say, well, if he stops drinking, then I will be better because he's never going to stop. He still has the alcohol and he has you. And he doesn't have to make any decisions because he's got his cake and eating it too. So to me, those are the most painful situations because if someone isn't really motivated for change, no matter how much they're hurting, how can I help them? People want me to wave a magic wand so things can be better. They have to do something for themselves. And from the women we work with, they have to come to a place where they love themselves more. And that's not an easy choice. But as I say to the spouses, how much more pain do you want? And I'll say this one more thing, and it's in 5 words. Um, I am volunteering for pain. I am volunteering for it. And then I say it hurts so much, but you don't want to do anything about it. And you're not just saying it's fine. So you were volunteering for your own pain. And I'm not telling you, by the way, I'm not telling folks to break up or not break up, but the person has to say no more, or they have to say fine. But sitting in the middle is torture. And so, Tammy, I see you nodding your head, and I'm not going to go on and on, but I know how much this means to you and how much you hear about this all the time. Could you just say, yeah, I'd love to. And you look sad, by the way, for those of you who are,
Yeah, no, and I hate it too when people get caught. And you said hope, but I think it's also, and there's fear. I think it's the two things that I'm either hopeful, like if he, and we're using genders, but if he just changes, then then we're all going to be fine. Then some of them even then we can go back to the way it was, but that was all lies. But also fear of, like, I don't want to be alone. And I think you are alone. You are alone in a relationship. You are technically in a relationship, but you've been abandoned by this person who you love and dearly, for many, and probably loves you, but is also in a situation like you said, is not willing. The consequences haven't been bad enough. I always say no addict changes, and it doesn't matter what form of addiction, no addict changes until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. And like you said, cake and eat it too. It's like it's I've got you and you can be unhappy, but I mean I'm used to that. And so
Right.
you can be
Nagging.
unhappy. Yeah, like yeah, you're nagging. No, you're asking for something and somebody's just not able to hear you, So you can say that because I'm still doing this over here, and I still have you, and but it is at great personal sacrifice for partners, and I hate that. And I've had a few partners push back on me because
Oh,
they'll yeah,
yeah.
I know they
You're
don't like
wrong. I
me
heard that
because
today. You're
well no,
wrong.
they perceive that I'm all pro addict. I've had people on the drop-in groups and webinars and things say things along those lines, and I'm like, no, I am pro people and pro relationships. And but a partner who is dying on the vine, waiting for somebody else to do something to ultimately be okay,
Right.
it's painful to watch. And so I advocate, and again, like you said, stay or go. Like zero judgment is zero. Like we don't know what you need to do, but if you're at peace and can go, yep, I can set up my life and my boundaries and be okay. I'm going to remain with an addict partner. I am just not going to let this torment me.
Like,
Fine,
right.
and if you need to go, and I do get there are some people that feel caught, like financial reasons or whatever reasons, health reasons, I need to stay. Okay, well then how do you within that framework do what you need to do to set up the safety so that you are okay regardless of what your addict is doing in active addiction or not. So
And I
yeah,
wanted to comment on
painful.
that, Tammy. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's all. I
So
just
we
said
did a
painful.
wonderful, and I'll say the name of our podcast. If you're, well, my podcast is called Sex, Love, and Addiction. And we just did, Tammy, I have to say, invites these amazing people for me to interview. And we did a podcast about sort of about separation. How do we separate? And it was really speaking, I mean, talked about all kinds of separations, but the one thing that I really loved, I'd never thought of it before, is, and so many people, how do we separate in our home? We don't have the money to separate. We have kids we have to take care of. How do we do that? And how do I not get tempted to this? And it seems like such a simple answer, but I'd never thought of it. Your roommates, your roommates, roommates don't have sex, roommates don't kiss, roommates share a place together and they pay for it and they take on different duties. And I think that if you're going to have a meaningful separation, I really am sorry, just this metaphor. It isn't that they don't sleep in your bed or they're punishing, it's that you are detached enough to be together and say, well, thanks for paying the rent and, leave me something in the refrigerator, don't drink my milk. But to hope, to to try to sort of be in a house with someone and hope it's going to get better and watch them and sleep in the same bed, but think you have some kind of separation, you have to get into the point where you say, I am, I don't, go out and have sex with other people because I'm just your roommate. And you do what you want. Um, so I guess what I'm saying to everyone is you don't have to necessarily go live in different places and not talk to each other or, um, the other thing that I really heard, Sex, Love, and Addiction, is the podcast. And I have to say, again, Tammy set me up with some really cool people. But one of the things they said about separating is you got to have a contract really clear. Really, we're going to be separated. And because I hear this all the time, we're separated, but we talk every night. We're separated, but they can come over anytime. Separation means we have a contract. This is how often you can come over. This is when you're going to see the kids. This is how we're going to do the finances. It's not divorce, but it's at all, but it's very clear that we have a boundary and we are respecting it. Otherwise, why do it? If you can come over when you want, or you can spend the money, or, why separate? Because you're both bound to hurt. And so whether you're roommates or you choose to separate physically, even with room, you have to have a very clear agreement. What is it okay for us to do? What is not okay for us to do? Even if you don't call me unless you text me I mean, the simplest things, but you have to agree. So anyway, Tammy, I want to thank you again. We also had one on collaborative divorce, and really, it's the same thing. We don't have to see a lawyer. well, you do, but we're going to sit down and make these agreements. This is what you're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And that's how you do it. You go to court and you ask some judge to decide, with 5 lawyers, you can spend all that money, but it basically comes down to either we're going to decide what's right for us or someone else's. So I guess what I'm saying, I will stop, is that you may feel like I don't have any choices here. You have so many choices. But the one choice you can't make is if they get better, then I will be better. You can't put yourself riding on what someone else has done. I'll be okay if they do this. I won't be okay if they. You have to find a place within yourself to say, I need to be okay for me. And, that takes a lot of pain for some people. They have to hurt a whole lot. And some never do. I am volunteering for pain. Just as long as you know that. So anyway, that's a lot. I know we have a lot of questions and answers, but hopefully that's useful to some people. I'm not saying separate. I'm not saying divorce, but I'm saying find a way to make peace with it, whether you stay or you decide to accept.
So
So
I'll quick add one more thing because we did a series of should I stay or should I go? And Deborah Doak is a
thank you.
mediator, and
Thank you.
she said, stay well, go with a plan, or wait with intention. I have a post-it note here. That's what I'm looking over. But stay well, go with a plan, or wait with intention. And I wrote that down and stuck it on my wall because I was like, that is like whatever you choose to do, it's still do it well,
Right, right.
Yeah.
But not
So,
hope. What
right.
be, and by the way, this, I will say it, I work with men who, oh, I'm going to do this. And I promise, and I mean, and then the partner gets hope, but there's no real intention. What am I going to do if they go back to it? What am I going to, and we talk about that. If they go back to it, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? How are you going to take care of yourself? Um, and when you start saying, well, if they do this and if they do this, you're on the wrong ride. You're not at an amusement park where you're going up and down on the roller coaster. You have to decide whether you want to be on the roller coaster or you don't. You just can't be along for the ride. Okay, well, that's my sadness when I see couples who are really caught in it, and I can't help them. I can't help them. But they did pay for the consult, and I did get to spend 2 hours with them. They're very nice people. All right,
And you don't know, like you planted seeds, so we'll see what happens. So
that
like,
is true. I don't know
can you
what's going to
see
happen.
in the open, check the open, and can you see betrayed partner here? I am petrified. Can you see that one, or do I need to move that to answered?
No, I open. Open. I see. I was so distracted. I'm the
Nope.
betrayer.
Okay,
What
I'm gonna
time?
so go to answered because I think this one
I'm
popped on
not into
before you
my
did.
own thing. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Okay. So, betrayed partner here. I am petrified of all women of all types, whether a server, doctor, neighbor, it doesn't matter. I can't go to a restaurant, no shopping, no beach, no group activities. This fear has become chronic. I was never like this before 4 years ago. No amount of therapy or bubble baths is mitigating this fear. I am desperate for relief. This is obviously due to my husband's 20 years of living a triple life. He screwed up recovery so badly it made it worse. He gave 5 stories for each situation, and it just
Right.
hit me last Thanksgiving with another huge disclosure. He's seeing a CSAT and 2 meetings a week. Doesn't think he needs a sponsor, no acting out that I'm aware of. Please give advice for the triggers that have become chronic.
Well, now we're talking about exactly what we talked about in some way. Um, well, let me just say one thing, and Tammy, I think is a great question for you to start with, which I am worried about your mental health. There's only you can only have so many sleepless nights. You can only be on edge and anxious all the time. Um, People who aren't get depressed don't pay attention to the symptoms that are going to lead them to depressed. They're not eating, they're not sleeping. I'm tortured. I can't go anywhere. You better take care of yourself and make sure that you don't end up in bed without being able to get out. So I just have to say that, I don't know. I understand the fear that you're talking about. At least I understand from what people I talk to, but when I see I am desperate for relief. No therapy makes me feel better. I can't go anywhere. It's chronic. Then I think about, wow, is their anxiety so high? Are they so depressed that they're not even able to take care of themselves? So there are no mental health solutions to these situations, but you do have to make sure that you're stable. And yeah, so anyway, I wanted to say that piece, Tammy, and then I was wondering if you could add to this.
And so if you're wondering, this isn't go to your general practitioner. This is go to
Mhm.
a qualified person who can actually diagnose you,
Hmm.
if you have a chronic level of depression or anxiety. And then there is medication, there are treatments, et cetera. So, and it says you've tried therapy. So I'm presuming you've been to like EMDR and somatic experience, et cetera. I I put something, I went ahead and was daring, and I put in the chat, there's an empowered women's retreat. What would it be like for you to address this fear head on and go be with other women who are betrayed partners, work with qualified therapists who can help you really address all of that stuff? I was like, oh, I've been to some of them, and like I was like, it would be amazing to walk up to you and ask if it was okay to give you a hug. It would be, I would do that. Not everybody would, but it'd be one of those things where I would want to engage with you. And I mean, to me, um, uh, women, like the women weren't the problem. He was the problem, and I'm sorry that it's been transferred to them, to women in general. He's the problem, not the women. The women can be there and supportive. I will share. I subbed in on the betrayed partner drop-in group last Thursday. It was like I do that regularly, and I was near tears because a person came on and said, I was told I should come to groups, but I don't know why I should be in groups. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to do that. And this entire group of women shared their stories of how they too didn't really want to come to group. They didn't want to be part of this, all of this. And they were sharing and supporting and going, I'm so glad you're here, and here's what, like all of this stuff. And I was like, this is an amazing group of women who have bonded over something that is, horrible and awful, and they are finding their strength. They are owning it, and regardless of what their addict is doing or not doing, some were doing great, some were not. They are still moving forward and connecting with other women, and therefore, like throwing a lifeline out. So my biggest thing is, women aren't the problem. Your husband is. He is. When you're saying, oh, he doesn't think he needs a sponsor, he is at best abstinent from the behaviors, but he's in zero kind of recovery. So just like Dr. Rob was talking about, what are you going to do to take care of you? And that may be a mental health professional to check for some of those more clinical levels of things, some EMDR, somatic experience, some processing of that fear, because petrified is really high level of fear. Or like, could you be brave and just try coming to one of the betrayed partner dropping groups that's online, or really lean into the empowered women's retreat. So I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so sad you're so stuck. So other thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm sad that you can't walk down the street and feel good about your life. You should be able to go to the beach. You should be able to go to the restaurant. You should be able to go to restaurants. You should be able to enjoy your life without your fear of what someone else is or isn't going to do leading the way. It's your life. I don't know what that other person's going to do, but you have the right to enjoy your life. And you can still love them. You can still care about them. You can still have the best of them, but I am volunteering for pain. And like Cammy's right, the retreats, I see women, well, I don't see them because there's no men allowed, but I see them walk in hopeless, and they walk out with hope, but not because that other person necessarily going to change, because they've begun to really believe in themselves. Um, and I will say, I've seen a couple recently. The partner was very angry at me, very angry at me. You don't understand that he is sick and he needs to get better. And I said, to be honest, I think you're the one who's troubled because you let it happen. You let this person walk all over you, and you say, well, why doesn't he just get help and he'll stop? As long as you believe that him doing this or that is going to make you better, you have to be better first. Whatever this person does, you have to be strong enough to say, I'm worth more. Yeah. So I'm just really sad tonight because I hate to see partners just put all that focus on the other person, that if they and maybe they will and maybe they won't. But how can you be at peace within yourself I know I know this isn't right, but I'll just tell you, I did a I mean, it's right for me to go on and on, but I did run a betrayed partners group, and you've heard me say this before, Tammy, where I talked to a woman who had a lot of healing recovery, and her husband had returned to the acting out, and the other women in the group like, what are you going to do, and how are you going to handle it? And she said, you know what, he can do whatever he wants, but I'm not going to blow up my life. I'm not going to give up my home, my finances, my happy life, my children, because he is, doing this. I'm going to take care of me. I come first. And I, hope he does better. Hope he doesn't. I hope he's not miserable, but I am not going to let this hurt my life. And I thought, she's got it. You know. Anyway, um,
So I just want to clarify because you said you let it happen, and that is you were saying you were not saying because somebody will get upset. You were not saying you let the acting out behaviors happen. That was not what he was saying. He was saying you did not have your internal boundaries of like I'm going to prioritize me, and I am
right,
not going to betray me.
right,
So
right.
so I just wanted to clarify because it would be easy for somebody to go, well, Dr. Rob said that, I caused their behavior. And no, you did nothing you did or didn't
No,
do caused it. And nothing you do or
right,
don't do, it's going to, you know, I have
right,
zero control over any other person.
right, right.
I can't make anybody do anything. Trust me, I would like to, but it's one of those things where yeah, he knows. Yeah, but it's like one of those things where, and I can be completely unraveled at trying to make somebody do something, and it won't matter. They will do it or not. All I can do is control my actions and my reactions. So.
I do want to say that I'm not also, I do want you to be hopeful. And I
Hmm.
don't want you to, someone slips, they're struggling, you can feel hopeful, you can feel disappointed. I mean, of course, that's the nature of loving someone who's troubled. But for them to just not be committed to change, and that, by the way, this person feels it. Just they're like, well, they don't want to do use, well, they want to do this, but they don't really want to do that. That's not a commitment to change. I have to move beyond. I'm looking at them to get better. I want them to get better. I hope they get better, but riding on hope is be hopeful when you see change happening. But anyway, enough about that. We got lots of
Okay.
people. Let's
So
go.
the next one, Stan answered, I was so distracted with my husband's porn addiction and cheating. I didn't realize how much he lies about so many things. I am now seeing that his entire family lies. They lie to themselves and live in denial about the hard stuff. Is there hope that this lying and living in denial delusion can be fixed in him? And is it a CSAT that works on that, or does he need a different type of therapy coaching? Lying is now my red line. It's insanity.
Well, again, these are great questions for us to
Hmm.
share.
Hmm.
First of all, you learn to accept what you grow up with and think it's normal. So I grew up with I grew up with a very crazy mom, and people ask, how can I work in mental hospitals, which I have in the past? Well, my home was one. So, I grew up in a family that was very sick, and so I can tolerate sick. And if you grew up with a family you know, that they've lied your whole life, I guess lying is just, doesn't bother you. It's what you can do. So when you say, it makes sense to me. I wouldn't stand back and say, oh my God, how can they? Of course, he's like this. This is what he's accepted. The whole family's accepted. Can it be fixed? Um, he has to be unhappy enough and struggle enough for it to want to be different. As long as he can lie to you and he gets away with it, as long as he could live a lie, why change it? So, or it's not easy to change who you are. I mean, trust me, someone who spent a lot of time in therapy, a lot. Um, I have to, and I said this to gentlemen today, you have to make a decision. I have to make a decision that I don't want to lie anymore because it makes me feel bad. Um, Again, I just keep going back to these folks that I saw today. I said to the gentleman, why do you want to stop lying? Why do you want to spend more time at home? Why do you want to? And the answer was, well, I may want to make her feel better. It's like, that's not the right answer. The right answer is because I don't want to live this way anymore, me inside. Because if you have somebody who's just doing it to make you feel better, they're just going to go back to it once you calm down. So is there hope that lying in denial, living it, can be fixed? Absolutely. But he has to want to, or she has to want to say, I can't live with, for me, lying all the time. I don't feel good about myself. What do they say in 12 steps programs? Oh, um, rigorous honesty in all my affairs. Rigorous honesty, it's selfish. I'm not honest because I want you to believe something, or Honesty is I cannot live with myself and stay sober. I cannot live with myself with the tension of wondering if you're going to find out or living with the work. It's for me. It's for me to stay sober and stop my behavior that I stop lying. So is there hope for the lying? And absolutely. But this person has to see that they can't live with their own lying anymore and they need to change it. Otherwise, no, it can't be fixed. Motivation. They have to be motivated. There was something about CSAT works with, or what were you
Yeah.
thinking?
So, well, I love that you talked about the 12 steps because honestly, like a CSAT, it's going to work with somebody once a week for 50 minutes. And you're talking about something that is so ingrained and is 24/7 and decades old. So a CSAT can help if the CSAT is helping hold accountability. Again, like Dr. Rob said, if there's got to be motivation. My colleague Scott and I have talked about 12 step, at length, both from the standpoint of how do you navigate the 12 steps. That is honestly where steps 4 through 9 are the housekeeping. We talk about a 24-hour rule for if I've told a lie, omission or commission, either one, not saying a lie, but knowing that it's not the full truth is also a problem. We have 24 hours to come forward and say, when I told you that, or I didn't tell you this, and I know you're going to be angry, and it can be, I was afraid of your reactions. I didn't want to, whatever. And here's what the truth is. And it's a process. Every addict of every form of addiction lies. Like, we have to start with lying to ourselves. Denial is I'm lying to myself. I believe it, and then I can lie to you and everyone else as well. So it is a searching of fearless moral inventory. We have got to be honest with ourselves and with others in the program. It's the easiest place to learn to do it because that's a safe space. So if he's doing 90 meetings in 90 days, if he's working with a sponsor, he's working the steps. If you're hoping that he changes with one CSAT meeting once a week for 50 minutes, like the hope that Dr. Rob was talking about, yeah, forget it. Really work on your boundaries. I hear you going, lying is now my red line. Like, I can appreciate how upset you are, with the constant lying. We get guys that come to treatment, and Dr. Rob has shared this before, of like, the partners don't like the acting out behavior, but it's the lies that absolutely just they can't tolerate. So if your betraying partner is working a program, like has a 3 circle plan, is working on the steps, not just attending 12-step meetings, yes, you can change. When it's that ingrained, is it going to be easy? No. Our colleague Scott, I'm not telling, it's on a webinar, so I'm not telling tales, has talked about, he sat in a 12-step meeting, the safest place on the planet, and he said a lie, and then he has to raise his hand and say, you know what, I just said that was a lie. And it's so insidious, and we can learn to do things differently. So yes, we can learn to do things differently. We have to practice it. We have to create the willingness to do so. But for you, a healthy boundary might be, I need a 24-hour rule. I want you to come. If you are unwilling to do that, when I catch you, because I will, then what is your consequence? What are you going to do for yourself? I'm going to remove myself. I'm going to go, take a walk. I'm going to go have dinner with a girlfriend, whatever it is that I'm going to do to remove myself from the situation and take care of me. I want to be closer to you, but the line just, erodes any relationship building. So,
Two quick things, Tammy. One is
mhm.
someone wrote, how do they reach us for consultations, or how do they, so this is what Tammy, you can write TAMI at seekingintegrity.com if you want to know how to get a consultation. It isn't just me, there are other staff members who do consultations, but you have to drop Tammy a note. And so it's TAMI at seekingintegrity, TAMI. I always say that. By the way, I never liked
I'm a 4-letter word.
TAMMY, by the way, I never liked
Yeah,
that, but I like your
yeah.
name.
Well, thank
I
you.
like the spelling. Your parents did good.
Yeah.
I guess there is one more thing about lying, and is I don't want to hurt you anymore. And I lied about something recently. I told you this, Tammy. I had to go do something, and my husband didn't want me to go do this. Like nothing to do with our issues, but he didn't want me to go. We had, how do I say this? There was I think a very good example of that, but telling what it is. Let's say, and this isn't it, but let's say there was a friend that I was spending time with. He didn't want me to spend time, not sex or whatever, and I really want to spend time with him. And then he would say to me, "Well, you're not with that friend anymore." And I was, "Oh no, I'm at the grocery store." And I'm not talking about sex. I'm not talking about it, but I was just They didn't, my husband didn't feel comfortable spending time. And I got home and he said, I don't trust you. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, I know that you weren't at the grocery store. And I just thought, oh, what I want is the trust. And I said, I am not going to lie to you. And I'll tell you, I was there and you'll be disappointed and you won't like it. But what I don't like is you're looking at me and saying, I don't trust you. That is more important to me than disappointing you because I did something that you didn't want me to do. I may still do things that disappoint you, but I'm not going to lie about it. And to me, I feel really good about that because how you feel matters to me. And us being connected matters to me more than hoping you won't be upset if I just won't tell you because you'll be upset. So hopefully that's what you're kind of talking about, Tammy,
Yeah.
because I still
Yes.
work on it, by the way, all this time. It's
No,
still
yeah.
there.
Yeah. Because it's easier to just like, oh yeah, no,
Oh,
I'm at the grocery
don't
store.
be
Yeah.
upset. I want you
Yeah.
upset with me
No,
if you
yeah, no,
don't
no, no.
know.
Yeah. But it's
Okay.
also gaslighting, so that's a
Oh,
whole
it
nother topic.
is.
Okay.
And they know.
All right. I'm the betrayer, 16 months since D-Day. Great sobriety sexually. We've made great progress in the first year. Then it all went downhill with a small lie. In heightened emotional conversations, I revert to being defensive and blame. Oh no, this really hurts my wife. And when I am regulated, I clearly see the wrongs in my behavior and make a repair. What I need is to not go to the unregulated space and do not blame. I am in therapy and doing EMDR. What else can I do to grow my emotional maturity?
So tell me, Tammy, and I do read this and see it in front of me. Emotional, there's different things being said here, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
one about when I'm feeling okay about myself, I'm not defensive and I can hear them. But sometimes when I am upset and overwhelmed and all that stuff, I lie and I try to cover it up, whatever it is. And this person is saying, I really do. Um, I am working on things to help me stay calm and help me stay focused so I just don't run away. But they're saying, what else can how can I become more emotionally mature? And that just seems, can you tell me how that
Oh,
fits
I get
in?
this question. Yeah. So
Okay, yeah,
here's
thank you.
yes, yes. Okay. So because what I hear is like if you're being regulated, you do well. And so I would encourage you to think about when you are emotionally regulated, what have you done in advance of that? We talk about hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and stressed. So, like if I have less bandwidth because I didn't sleep well or I've got too much stress, I'm going to be less regulated. So a couple of things. Every webinar host that we have says slow things down. And I would invite you to have a conversation with your betrayed partner and say, this happens and I don't want to go there. So can we have an agreement that, it would be okay to say, I hear what you're saying and I need a moment to process it. Can I take 5 minutes and can you co-regulate, do a breathing exercise together? Is there something that we can do? Because we need to talk about this and I want to do it with integrity. And if you talk about that when you're not in the throes of things, then there's a plan. Like we talked about earlier. If you've got a plan, okay, now, okay, this happens, you're feeling defensive, you start to feel in your body, I'm going to be defensive, I'm going to blurt something out to be responsive. And if you can take that 3-second pause and go, is this going to help? No. Can we take a time out? I need to regulate. I want to be intentional about my response to you. I want to have a conversation. Or this might be a conversation that we need to level up to our therapist. This is like I can recognize that this is really a problem and I want to make sure that we're addressing it. Can we take this to our couples therapist? Like you guys are smart people. Problem solve together. Figure out, like what can we try that will not get us into this situation? And here's the other thing. With all due respect, I love that you're at 16 months, great chips, all that. And it's still so early in the process. So be a little kind to yourself, not letting you off the hook, but yeah, you're still gonna make errors of judgment or react instead of be intentional. But how can you give yourself a little bit of space to go, okay, I'm feeling defensive. Usually feel it in your body, recognize that, pay attention, cues. I'm going to ask to slow everything down. Can we just take a moment? That honestly, that can give you just enough of a space to be back into your intellectual intelligent thinking part of your brain rather than that reactive part. So does that make sense, Dr. Rob?
Well, I think that is the how to manage it. I mean, that is how to manage it when you see it. But sometimes the only way to see it is to find yourself being offensive. Oh, I'm being offensive. Oh, I'm lying. That must mean I'm dysregulated. Sometimes you don't. So I guess what I was writing down is
So you're saying it after the fact, like you don't
I
recognize it beforehand.
I don't. What I need to do is not go to the unregulated space. Well, guess what? You are. You can't not go to the unregulated space. I will always want to act out. I can't not want to. But the question is, what do I do? Oh, how do I, um, you're going to go to the unregulated space. What do you do then? As Tammy said, do you breathe? Do you walk away? And maybe you don't even recognize that you're in that space, but you do see it because of how you're acting. So, you may not know it. You can see how you're acting and you recognize it. You have to accept that you may get there, but how are you going to manage it? What are you going to do to take care of yourself there? And by the way, folks, unregulated means upset. It's a really fancy word for I'm upset. I don't know how to not be upset. Well, you're going to be upset. So what are you going to do? Regulated really means just finding balance inside yourself, which kind of means like not being upset. So anyway, you want to keep going?
Yes. Betrayed partner here. 9 months since first discovery. Addict spouse is sober from acting out behaviors, dry drunk syndrome. 12 steps CSAT. I am so repulsed and horrified by the behaviors, not just the acting out, but the enormous deception and the inauthenticity of this man. I want to not hate him, but I find him disgusting. What can I do to move through this rage and the injury of injustice?
Again, I'm going to toss that to you, Tammy, to start because you get this. People reach out to this all the time.
Yeah, it's 9 months, it's 9 months. And for healing, we talk about recovery for addicts takes, 2 to 5 years. And you had discovery. Like this was not like, oh, I've known I'm doing this. Addicts are, I've known I'm doing this all along, like I got caught. I hate that, but it's also, I've known you didn't. And so of course there's this huge, fracture in that moment, it's a traumatic event. So, but I hear with this the repulsion, and again I go to the physical. There's somatic, that you're probably upset stomach and other things, and so like a somatic experience, trauma help could possibly be useful. We talk about EMDR that can help regulate, and it doesn't make the stuff go away, but then it's more like viewing it on a television versus having it live in your body. So there are some things that you can do to help just level down. It won't magically take it all away. um, and I also hear part of an issue perhaps is that you feel like he's in a dry drunk, at 9 months, he if he's doing the work, and really working the steps, not just going to meetings, I would hope that you would be seeing, some inklings of like, oh, that's a little different. That's, I'm starting to see that he's actually making some shifts and changes, so it could also be that could be, throwing fire gas on the fire. But for you, like, man, oh man, the Empowered Women Retreat that I posted earlier, I'll dig it back out again, but there's anger work, there is breath work, and it's not just the 4-7-8 breathing, which I really love, but like this is the deep stuff. It's crazy good. There's boundaries, there's all kinds of modalities that psychodrama. There's so much healing that happens in a weekend. The women go from being like that, repulsed and rigid in their bodies, and by the last evening, they were laughing and smiling and communicating with each other. I mean, it's a gift to get to witness that. So more help for you in doing some of those trauma response efforts could be useful. And if you need names of people, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and include where you're located so I can help you find. In fact, I've got another really good idea. So email me if you're that person and are open to getting some help. So, okay.
Well, I feel like this is the question before. I want to not hate him. you're gonna hate him. It's like
Yeah,
I don't want to be unregulated. You're gonna be unregulated. I don't want to hate him.
yeah,
You're gonna hate him sometimes. And so I think fighting yourself, I don't want to feel that way. It's how you feel. And so, we say also in 12 step, acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. I think you need to accept that this is where you are. And sometimes you may not want to. You may want to feel like, oh, they're doing, and I don't want to be so angry. Or um, I think looking at how are you going to take care of yourself when you're feeling that way? Not how do I not feel this way, but
right.
how do I find a way to feel peace within myself? What I hear you say is you don't feel good about yourself when you feel this way. Okay, well, how are you going to deal with those feelings for yourself? And you have to accept that sometimes you're going to feel that way. I think pushing away feelings is part of how we get here. So, especially spouses, I won't let that bother me, whatever that is. So, um, yeah, there was something else I wrote, which is that you put sober in quotes, addict spouse sober. And I don't know, first of all, you're going to have to explain dry drunk syndrome, Cami, because I'm going to ask you that in a second. But do you not believe them? If you say sober, that means something to me. And I don't know whether it means they would be acting differently if they were sober, or maybe you don't really believe it because they're not acting out. I don't know what it means, but all I say to you is just because part of what I'm good at is I see everything. I do. I'm one of those therapists. The cigar is never just a cigar. And when you put something like quotes, addict spouse, they say they're sober. I'm like, what leaves you thinking that they're not? Because clearly you don't, or you wouldn't put it in quotes. So I know that seems kind of sort of simplistic, but it is. But Tammy, what is a dry drunk? I just think you need to say,
Well, and I picked up on the same thing with you, which is why I was like, like if he is he really doing the work, or is he just warming a seat in a 12 step meeting? So okay, so a dry drunk, it refers to alcohol, where so with AA, we talk about dry drunk because if you just remove the alcohol, you still have a really not nice person, who's not changed. Like, just and we talk about that with this is abstinence, which is kind of what I was leaning towards with this. Abstinence is just not doing the behaviors. It's not doing what we weren't supposed to be doing in the first place, but we don't really change. Sobriety takes some time, but that's why when I also talked about recovery is 2 to 5 years, that gives us the time to integrate this into all areas of our life. We're not lying, we're to ourselves and everyone else. We are, things shift, and we are taking the 12 steps, which is I get some people don't like 12 steps. I would invite you to go watch the webinar that Scott and I did that talked about it and what real recovery is. We did 2 different ones, but like, it is such a path to having the foundation for living differently. If we knew how to do life, we wouldn't be addicts. We didn't. We found maladaptive coping mechanisms, and we need to find a different thing to do, different ways of interacting with the world, and not keep doing the same problematic thing. So it's it's tried and true. It's been around for 75 years. It's like one of those, like, getting help in that level changes things. So, but that was what I alluded to was, though, I picked up on I don't really believe him at 9 months. You should be, if he's doing the work, you would start to see things shifting.
I was going to say one more thing out of dry drunk
Hmm.
syndrome, which is kind of like, I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this if you just leave me
Hmm.
alone. I'm doing this because, and it's not so much I'm doing this for me. And so you see resentments, you see anger and disappointment. You don't see them taking fully responsibility because they've just stopped. But it's almost like they don't have the reason. What again? I'm doing this for me. Turns someone from a dry drunk into, I need to do things that will make me feel better. Go to meetings, learn. So anyway, the person is still saying, I'm not happy because I'm being made to do this. I have to do this. I shouldn't do this, but I guess I have to, that to me, that's resentment. They're resentful that they have to make changes, as opposed to they have embraced the fact that they will be happier, and so will others if they do. So more stuff.
Okay. Um, how do you know when he's serious about change versus just going through the motions?
I feel like this is kind of like the last question. What does
Mhm.
serious mean to you, Tammy? So what does that mean when someone says, are they serious? What is serious? And also, what is serious at 2 weeks can be very serious than 2 years. But what does serious mean to you? Because that's an interesting question, I think.
So, so for me, when I made the decision that I could not live like I was living anymore, and I was willing to get help, I was, I'm not exaggerating, deadly serious about,
Right.
wanting to change. And I did it because I wanted to be different. I wanted to live, quite frankly. I was on a collision course. That's a whole nother story. But what Dr. Rob was just talking about, if I'm doing this for you, if I'm checking off boxes because, oh, like, look, partner, I'm going to meetings and, like, I'm reading this book or whatever, versus I'm doing this work and I'm committed to this process. I'm scheduling my therapist. I've got my 12-step meetings and the drop-in groups and our work groups. I've got all of those, planned. Like, that, to me, that is, I am I can't live in this world and not be on a recovery path. I will fail,
And I don't want to be
and
around you personally.
no, nobody wants to be around me. Like, I know for sure. Yeah. So like, I need to, like, this was life giving, life changing. It changed everything for me. Like, I always say, if I could wave a magic wand, which I don't have, and you could see how good recovery is, everybody would want it and they wouldn't be dragging their heels. And addiction is one of the craziest things where, like, people will do stuff for a while and they'll go, oh, this is great. I've changed so much. It's helped so much. And then they stop doing what worked. And then they relapse, they act that back out, things go badly. And they're going, "Well, how did that happen?" Because we stopped doing the things that worked for us to be on a different path and went right back to the things that we did that, caused all the issues in the first place. Addiction, it's a thinking problem. We think we know better. We think, we aren't really doing anything that's bad. We think we can't live without whatever. I mean, it's all of that. It's crazy thinking. And we need other people and accountability in order to change and stay on course.
I was going to add something to this too, which is because I was writing this down. I do want to. I think that how do I say this? Sometimes you go because you're supposed to, or you think it's right to. It doesn't mean that over time you might not realize that you belong there. So sometimes people do show up in meetings for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they do go to therapy for the wrong reasons. But sometime in the process, like when I would run group therapy and I'd see someone individually, and people say to me, "Well, do you let them in a group if they haven't started 12-step programs?" And I'll say, "Well, I know eventually they're going to, because they're going to hear the other guy say, 'Oh, I love this. I'm getting something. Would you like to come with me?'" So I don't necessarily. I think just starting the process, just saying this, may help the person see that they need to do the change, even if they went for the wrong reasons. But I wanted to answer your question, which was, I think seriously about change is when you stop saying, "Did you go? Are you there?" You said you were going at 5. No, when you were still, did you listen to the podcast? In other words, when you were still motivating their behavior, you're saying, "Did you go? Were you there? Here's the next." I think when I'm saying, "I'm going, I'll be there." I think when the person is really taking responsibility for their own and not, they're not, when you guys, I tell the people who are in our treatment center, when you go home, put on the refrigerator a list of what you're going to do Monday too. And yes, on the refrigerator on a piece of paper, but what meeting you're going to go to Monday, what group you're going to do Tuesday, then you're going to see your therapist on Wednesday. It shouldn't be your spouse who says, "Have you done that? Are you doing that? Have you been there?" You should already be at peace that we have made that decision. We're going to do those things. So to me, serious about change means I've taken responsibility for the decisions. You don't have to nag me. You don't have to bug me. I'm doing it. So that's part of it. Yeah. And by the
Okay.
time let's chat after, and I can walk my dog and we can chat. So
Yes. Okay.
okay.
So I have so much rage. 1 year from D-Day, good work from husband, but I'm still so furious and want revenge. How can I fix this?
Well, I just did a whole talk on forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if go ahead.
No, I was to say Angela Spearman. It was the last week of January and the first week of February. She hosted on this, and we talked about resentments and rage and forgiveness. It was like so perhaps, I mean, she did 2 hours of this, so there was a lot of content on there. But I'm like, to me, rage is serving a purpose. Like, rage serves a purpose of, like, I'm I'm pushing out the hurt. So, um,
Control.
well, yeah, but it's also, yes, because if I'm hurt, man, that's painful. But if I'm
Right.
raging, that is
Right.
big and powerful and outward. So, um, again, I think this is the third time there's anger work done
Right.
in the Empowered Women's Retreat, like transformative. Please, 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 please consider doing that. I promise I would send the link again in the chat. So I'm going to grab it right now, Dr. Rob.
Um, I really believe in people writing letters they don't send. And
Mhm.
I think, I hate you. I fucking, you want to ruin, excuse my language. I hate you. You ruin my life. Here are all the reasons. Bringing that to your friend, bringing to a therapist, getting, really looking at it for yourself and letting yourself want revenge. And this is what I would do if I could. I would, do this and cut off those. I think just allowing yourself to get it out, but not necessarily, um, uh, uh, planning how you can do it with that person. By the way, owning it. I want revenge. That's something you want. How will it serve you? What does it really mean? What is it about drinking the poison and you end up poisoning
And
yourself? What is that?
I'm drinking the poison and expecting you to die, like
Right.
I'm
That's
expecting you to have negative results. Yeah.
that's the perfect example of this, which is I'm poisoning myself with my rage, but I expect that it's going to make you feel differently. Or what is we have this thing in our therapy called secondary gain, which means what are you getting out of it? What do you get out of being angry and wanting revenge all the time? And as what Tammy said, is give you a sense of control. Wanting revenge might be, I don't want to get close to them, I'm going to push them away. Maybe you don't know how to be close to them in a healthy way, so you just keep them away all the time. I don't know what it means for you, but I do suggest you don't take it. Look, if you want to do something, make it intentional. I'm going to leave you. I'm going to, here are the ways in which I want revenge. I'd write that down. Are there any of those you actually want to do? Or, now remember, if you do something you're going to regret, like you said, I'm not helping. So you may put on that rage list, I'd like to kill them. I, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea, but there might be some things on there that you can do that aren't, that you don't have to do them out of revenge. You can do them because you don't feel good about it or you want things to change. So I think, but the bottom line is though that revenge is a way and I was thinking this today about why this woman wants to stay with this man despite all that he's done to her. She doesn't want to hurt. She doesn't want to feel the hurt if she had to get angry at him. And I wonder if you don't want to feel the hurt that would come if you stopped, pointing it out there and saying, I want to hurt you. What hurt would you feel inside of yourself? Revenge is powerful. Its anger is powerful, but underneath it, sadness, hurt. All right, let's keep on.
Okay. Should I know what his arousal template is? He says it will only hurt me and he only has me on his list now. I'm scared we'll be around people we shouldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, read the other
So
thing,
this
which
is
is
the
why would someone be angry
535
at me? Go
anonymous.
ahead.
Yeah. So, oh, well, it's actually, not a question, a thank you. I know a lot of women are going to be angry at what Dr. Rob is saying tonight. And I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for speaking the truth and giving us tough love. Time for us to stop putting up with this bullshit. Thank you, Dr. Rob and Tammy. Addiction is not an excuse. You're right. It's a reason, it's not an excuse. And then the next question, Dr. Rob,
Well, I
should
just want to say
I,
one thing about that. I think they'd be angry at me for saying, go ahead and accept it.
yeah,
And the answer is, what is it? Accept the things I cannot change. You can leave them. You can do whatever you want. But if you're going to stay with them and they're going to continue to do what they do, and you're going to be miserable about it, you might as well say, well, I don't want to change my life, but I do want to stop being miserable. And so what can
go
you
with
do
a
to stop?
plan, stay
Right.
well, or wait with intention.
Okay. Next one. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
just wanted
No,
to comment on that.
yeah, thanks. And thanks for getting me back on track too. So this is from 535. Should I
Got it.
know what his arousal template is? He says it would only hurt me and he has only me on his list now. So she is his only arousal template. I'm scared we'll be around people we shouldn't be.
Well, there's two things in here and they're kind of
Mhm.
separate.
Yes.
One of them is, what is an arousal template? It's simply what turns me on. And some people's arousal, if they, are into feet. Some people's arousal is they want to smack someone around. Whatever turns you on, none of my business. But I do think that you have a right to know. And my fear would be if I were an addict, what if it isn't you? Or what if it's things other than you? Or what if it's something you can't be? Maybe a part of my arousal template, I'm married to you, I love you, but is also men. Could I tell you that? What would that mean? I don't believe when someone says, Oh, you're the only one on my list. I'm sorry. You have a lifetime of being turned on by something. You just don't snap it off because you don't want to hurt your spouse or you want to. I still want to act out. I still want to. So to say, oh well, I'm in recovery and that's not even on my. It has to be on my list every day of my life is something that I think about and consider. So to me, saying that for you, um, which is I only have you on my list now. By the way, who is he afraid of really being hurt? If he told you that, what he's afraid of is you'll abandon, you'll be angry. It's not about you're hurting you. It's about he doesn't have the consequences of what would happen if he told him. And that is not a reason again, lying is not a reason you don't lie because you don't want someone to be upset with you. That doesn't, well, that is why you lie, is you don't want them to be upset with you. He's not telling you this because he doesn't want you upset at him. But anyway, the other part is about control, and I hear this spouses a lot. Well, I don't, what would be a good example, Tammy? Like I want to control, I don't want to go to the mall. I don't want to go to the beach. I don't want to, that somehow I'm going to be able to manage. Look, and then Sharon O'Hara is one of my teachers, and she was at this conference this week, which is so great to see her. But anyway, she said, many of the addicts I work with could be turned on by a rock. That's
Hmm.
how desperate. How
Hmm.
so? If you think that keeping us away from, the sand is going to keep us from not acting out with sand, I mean, keep us away from the ocean is good. You can't have any control over what we're going to do, what we're going to see, or so it's my choice. I can say to you, I don't think I should go to the beach. I have clients that say, you know what? I love going to the beach, but I don't think I should. It's not good for me. I don't think I should go to a mixed gender gym. In other words, you can't control what you think is going to keep me safe or not. I have to make those decisions for myself. I can say to you, I don't want to go to the beach, or I don't want to hang out with men, or whatever it is. But I think there's the idea, these are different questions, but I think the second one is really interesting to me, which is you can't, as a partner, um, worry for that person about where they should or shouldn't go. They know for themselves, and they should tell you so you're not worried about it. We have time. Well, actually, we don't have any more time, and I've got to walk my dog. I know you want to answer the next question. I know you, Tammy. You want to answer the next five, but I was on time, so that means we have to stop. Um,
I was
you're
just sending
talking.
because people were, I know because I was typing and
Oh,
talking. So yes,
um,
I answered
well, actually, you were
the,
typing. We can't do two things at once. We think we can.
no,
So,
but I was answering because they were like, what was it? So it's stay well, go with a plan, or wait with intention. And that was on one of the series. It was Deborah Doak from last summer. We did a series of four, stay or go. And that was one of those. And that was one of the things that she wrote. So I'm
I
just
wanted
quoting her.
And I would just want to say to you, all of you, in case you're not aware or your list, everything we've talked about, whether it's making an appointment with me or whether it's, looking something like the women's retreat up, or Tammy says, here's a great lecture. It's all on seekingintegrity.com. Free things, pay things, it's all there. And so anything you want to find out, where is this? Tammy mentioned this talk, you can find it all there. That's where we keep everything. It's our big storage space is seekingintegrity.com. So that's where you can find the things that you're looking for. Um, I really have to walk her up. So she's being very patient, but I
Okay.
know what's
I
under
just
there.
answered the last one. Email me for
Okay.
more information
All
because,
right.
yeah. So, okay.
And I
Thank
know
you
we need to
so
chat. I'll
much.
call you in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Y'all take good care. Be well.
Bye. Thank you everyone for the questions.